Mark, just walk us through whether any of that AI, well, misstep can be walked back and can be indeed invigorated today, do you think?
They're going to try to tell a good story on AI, right? They're going to come out full force, talk about how they're different, talk about how they're highly integrated, talk about privacy, talk about how the other companies are stealing your data, right? But the reality is they're not going to show much of substance when it comes to AI. The big thing is they're going to open up their Apple Intelligence, they're called the AFM or the Apple Foundation models, to third-party developers. So developers will be able to use Apple's AI technology if they want to build their apps and build their features. There's going to be an upgraded version of their Shortcuts app for consumers to allow customers and users on the iPhone, iPad, and Mac to create shortcuts or little widgets and features themselves using AI. The biggest thing when it comes to AI is that translation, right? This is something Google has had for a couple of decades now, is now going to be a very core system element. So you'll be able to live translate a phone call. You're speaking to someone in another language, right? You'll be able to hear that back in your native language. Likewise, in text messages, there's going to be changes in the Messages app, new backgrounds and polls to better compete with WhatsApp. But the biggest announcements today will be around the user interface. They're coming out with a new liquid glass digital material, a new look for all of their operating systems across all of their devices, and then the iPad getting a big productivity lift to make it more usable like a Mac, particularly for things like multitasking and PDF management.
I think it's seen largely by the developer community, right, Mark, that the move from version to year version labeling for the operating systems, that's kind of helpful. But when I read your reporting around liquid glass, it's almost as if there's a roadmap as well down the road to future generations of hardware. Could you explain that bit?
So the new user interface is very glassy, lots of use of transparency, translucency throughout the operating system, letting your wallpaper and light shine through different user interface elements. It's very similar to the UI you're seeing on the Vision Pro. Apple's working on a new mostly glass iPhone for 2027, the iPhone 20, as I'm calling it, for the 20th anniversary of the iPhone. And so you're going to see that hardware, software really make it difficult to understand where it begins, where it ends, more of a unified product experience, things that Apple has had in the past. They've done the iPhone 5C in 2013. The idea was the same, molding color from the operating system to color on the phone. And so this is going to be pretty exciting. And so yes, this portends to some major hardware developments in the coming years. But in terms of this year and the short term, nothing that exciting coming from Apple, other than the UI, I would say.
And therefore, Mark, the age-old question is it going to be enough to really invigorate purchasing? Because there's a laundry list of issues that Apple faces. And yes, it's about AI and indeed the product, but it's also about the supply chain, and it's also about regulation here in the United States.
I mean, for this fall, you've got the iPhone 17 Pro. That's going to have a redesigned back, a redesigned camera area. And anytime Apple does a design change, whether it's for usability or just aesthetic, right, that gets lines flowing, gets people interested. So I do think the iPhone 17 Pro will be a success. By then, the AI features will be a bit better. They're doing some fundamental changes to the large language models themselves. But if you compare and contrast what you've seen from Google and OpenAI and Anthropic over the last several months to what you're going to see from Apple today, it's going to be very stark, and it's going to be very clear that Apple's behind. Of course, they're going to tell a very good story, right? They're going to market their way through this. But if you focus on the substance, you'll see the big differences.